1. Birth and family background. Thomas Grayson was born on March 3, 1982, in Oxford, England. It was a quiet, gloomy day, with heavy grey clouds, as if the sky was preparing for something serious. His mother, Martha Grayson, née Reed, gave birth silently, keeping herself under control. She was never one to express her emotions publicly, and even in pain, she did not allow herself to break down. The labor lasted more than 10 hours. The nurse would later say, "Your wife is one of those women who give birth in silence. Deeply and painfully." Thomas's father, George Grayson, a mechanic at a private auto repair shop in the Cowley area, waited in the hallway. He held a copy of Classic Motors magazine in his hands, which he never opened. All his thoughts were there, behind the door, next to the woman he loved and the child he had not yet seen. George was a simple, practical man. But at that moment, he held a cross in his pocket and prayed silently. When Thomas was born, blue, silent, without a first cry, the doctors were alarmed. But George said, "He's just listening. He already understands everything." 2. The first months. Home and silence. The family lived on North Street, old red brick, a slightly sagging roof, wooden windows that were constantly fogged up from the inside. Inside, the house exuded peace and quiet. The hallway smelled of books and mint tea. Although she worked in a library, the mother did not abandon her systematic approach at home. Books were arranged alphabetically, socks by color, and plates in a row on the drying rack. Thomas's bedroom was modest. The walls were covered with old wallpaper featuring faded ships. Above the bed was a wooden shelf made by his father. The bed creaked with every movement. By the window was a small chair on which he sat, looking out into the yard. His first word was not "Mama" or "Papa." It was "No." And that said a lot about him. From his earliest months, Thomas showed that he would not tolerate any intrusion into his inner world without permission. 3. Emotional profile. From an early age, he was not a child who laughed easily. His smile, rare, almost inappropriate, appeared only when observing small details, drops on the glass, a cat moving in its sleep, shadows on the wall. He was sensitive to smells, sounds, and textures. He couldn't wear wool sweaters, they irritated his skin. He didn't like loud musical toys, they scared him. His first serious emotional breakdown occurred at the age of 3. A neighbor boy broke his wooden toy, a boat that his father had made. Thomas didn't speak for 3 days after that. He sat in the corner under the table, staring at one spot, not touching his food. His mother tried to take him to the doctor, but the doctor said that the child was deeply distressed and should not be pressured. 4. Relationship with his parents. His father was the only one Thomas opened up to. They would sit together for hours in the garage. George didn't force his son to talk, he just gave him tools, wooden blocks, buttons, and ropes. Thomas loved the feel of wood in his hands. He learned to sand, hammer nails, and connect parts, and found peace in this. His mother was more distant. She took care of him, feeding him, washing his clothes, cleaning his shoes, but she didn't hug him. Hugs were too intimate for her. She showed her love through structure. Her tenderness was a glass of water by his bed, clean sheets, a bookmark in the book he was reading. 5. First friends and school environment. Thomas's first friend was Ben Lee, an energetic boy from a family of artists. Ben was the emotional opposite of Thomas, loud, bold, always taking the initiative. He taught Thomas to play ball, ride a bike, and spit in puddles. For Thomas, it was like another planet. And although he rarely laughed, in Ben's presence his shoulders relaxed. The second important child was Julia Hunt. She was thin, fair-haired, always wore plaid dresses, and had a book in her hands. She drew strange pictures, figures without eyes, houses without doors. Thomas sometimes peeked at her in the library. They rarely spoke, but she once gave him a drawing. he kept it under his pillow. School life was difficult for Thomas. The first years were a psychological quagmire. He disliked singing lessons, feared physical education, and endured arithmetic. The only thing that fascinated him was reading. He read everything: signs, labels, newspapers, old postcards. His teacher, Mrs. Wilson, said, "Thomas has a soul that lives beyond his age. It's as if he hears the voices of older times." 6. Internal states and observations. At the age of 6, Thomas began drawing his dreams. At first, they were simple: a dark room, a shadow on the ceiling. Then they became more symbolic: an open door with nothing behind it. His mother found one of these drawings and sat with it in her hands for a long time. She didn't talk about it, but from that day on, she began to visit his room more often at night to check if he was asleep. Thomas kept a diary from the age of 7. The entries were short and fragmentary: "It's raining today. I heard it falling on the roof, it sounded like applause." He observed the world like a researcher. When other children played hide and seek, he watched the leaves fall into a puddle and break the surface of the circle. 7. Early psychological instability. By the age of 8, Thomas showed signs of deep sensitivity and anxiety. He often hid under the table during loud noises and couldn't stand unexpected questions. During school holidays, he would sit in the bathroom or ask his father to pick him up early. The psychologist he was taken to at age 9 said, "He doesn't have a disorder. But he has a depth that most children can't handle." Thomas did not trust psychologists. The first time, he remained silent throughout the entire session. Only a few weeks later, when he saw animal figurines on the shelf, did he ask, "Are these yours or mine?" And when he was allowed to take one, he chose a wolf. From then on, he began to talk. Lost Anchor, 1989 to 1992. The death of his father. In March 1989, a few weeks after Thomas's 11th birthday, his life was shattered. His father, George Grayson, was returning home late at night from work: a wet road, a faulty truck brake, a short telegram of death. An accident. Instantaneous. No chance. The last thing Thomas remembers is the smell of gasoline on his father's hands as he leaned down to kiss his son on the head, saying, "I'll be back soon, Captain." Those words stuck. Because he never came back. The news of the loss. Martha was the first to find out. She didn't cry. She washed the cups first. Then she washed the floor. Then she sat down by the phone. And only after Thomas entered the kitchen did her face fall like an old curtain. "Sit down," she said. "I have something to tell you." But Thomas already understood. Something in the silence of the house, in the tension in her voice, in the way the cup trembled in her hands. He sat down. He listened. He said nothing. He just left, went to his room, took off his sweater, lay down on the floor, and hugged the wooden boat tightly, the last thing he and his father had carved together. Later that night, his mother came to his door. She knocked, quietly, as if she didn't believe she had the right to. Initial reactions. Over the next few weeks, Thomas didn't cry. He threw things. He smashed a table lamp. He broke a photo frame. At school, he hit a boy for making fun of a poem Thomas had written. At home, he tore his notebooks to pieces. Martha said nothing, just cleaned up the debris. One evening, when he threw his dinner plate on the floor, she just sighed. "Keep throwing things if it makes you feel better." He looked at her with a gaze that was not childish. "What if it doesn't make me feel better? Then you just have to get through it. Like I did." School and isolation. No one else bothered Thomas in class. The teachers said, "Leave him alone." His classmates felt tense, as if someone were trying to breathe in a vacuum. Thomas sat at his desk, drawing figures with a black chalk: boats without oars, doors without handles, houses without windows. His only friend, Ben Lee, moved with his family to Sheffield. Thomas didn't say goodbye. He heard the news from his teacher. Julia sat with him during recess once, but he didn't say anything. She asked, "Are you still drawing?" He replied, "Not anymore. Because the dreams have become the same." "What are they like?" "Empty." After that, she didn't come near him. Psychological help. Martha agreed to meet with a child psychologist. Thomas was taken to the Emotional Support Center in Botley. It was quiet there, and it smelled of plasticine and old books. The psychologist, Mr. Grant, was a gray-haired man with a low voice. During the first session, Thomas didn't say a word. He just twirled a wolf figurine in his hands. At the third meeting, Thomas said, "Mom said he just left. But he's not coming back, right?" Grant didn't answer. He just nodded. And that was the first acceptance of reality that Thomas received, without deception. After the session, Martha asked her son on the way home, "Do you want me to sit next to you during the next one?" "No. You'll be silent, and I'm already silent." She didn't answer. The state of the family. Martha changed. She became even more mechanical. Her whole life became a routine: get up, eat, be silent, do housework, sleep. She worked more than before. When Thomas asked why she wasn't home in the evening, she replied, "Someone has to pay for the gas." Once he asked, "And who will pay for what's broken inside me?" She was silent for a long time. Then she whispered, "Perhaps we will." Nighttime thoughts. Thomas often dreamed about his father. But not in real life. It was like in a theater, a stage, a spotlight, and George standing at the edge. Smiling, but not speaking. And always, like a shadow that cannot be caught. At night, he would sometimes wake up and go to the kitchen. He would sit on the floor with his back to the refrigerator. His mother would wake up and find him there. "Did you talk to him again?" she would ask quietly. He doesn't answer. But at least he doesn't lie. Closure and silence. New lines appeared in the diary. "I dream that I open the door. But behind it is the street. And the street is empty. And I can't go out because my feet are stuck to the floor. I don't want to be like my mother. But I think I already am. Sometimes I think, what would happen if I stopped talking altogether?" End of chapter. At the turn of 1992, Thomas, a 10-year-old boy, was no longer just a child. He was an early form of an adult whom no one had taught to be a feeling human being. Adults taught him silence, and pain taught him to remember. A world without a father became not tragic for him, but alienated. Not painful, but empty. That was the scariest thing, not what happened, but that he learned to live with it. "Tom." Her voice broke. I don't know how to say this. It's just, he's not coming." "I know," came a voice from the darkness. "You brought a smell that doesn't happen when everything is fine."